listening to Southpod, Rise of a Region, hosted by Stanfield Gray and Jon Yarian.
You seem like you have pretty good posture.
You know, it's funny you say that. I currently am I'm losing feeling in my left arm, I think because of years of bad posture. So I have some...
Is that a joke?
No, collapsing disc in my neck. And so...
Wow.
So thank you. My mom would be so proud. For years, she told me that
Are we trying to fix this situation, or we just there's a fatalistic attitude there that surprises me?
Yeah, no, I mean
loss
that may
of an
be accurate.
arm.
No, it'll come back. I think I've heard some different stories.
What do you mean? What do you mean it'll come back?
The theory of the case is that
it's not like a cold. You don't just feel better 3 days. I love the confidence. It'll come back.
There's a
hand waves.
I'm told that there is a bulging disc here. And that in time it'll collapse. I will be shorter and in less pain.
I don't mean to be glib, because that's the way you're expressing it's with humor.
Be glib.
But there's no intervention procedure. You're just waiting for collapse. I mean, you could be on any given day walking around and just you're like an inch shorter.
That's unclear. I haven't been as proactive about seeing a neurologist as one could. Which is to say, I have seen a physical therapist who's like, well, it'll come and go over the rest of your life. And so, fine. All right.
David Metcalf, welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
And we're talking about the loss of feeling in your left arm.
Yes.
And a level of confidence around that situation that's frankly astonishing. So you've heard, maybe a neighbor or somebody at a bar, there's some rumor that it'll come back or get better, and you're good with that.
Yeah, a real life medical professional.
Okay, a doctor.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on what the letters after the physical therapist's name mean. I don't know if they mean doctor, but they might, and I hope they do. I mean, I really do. But that's what I'm banking on.
David, I'm concerned for your arm. We're going to set that aside for a moment. Good. That's fascinating, and I'm sure we'll come back to it. You live and work here in Atlanta, where we're recording today. And before we got started, you suggested that was by choice.
Yes.
That you wanted to be here. Defend that. Explain it.
My wife and I moved here in 2009. And I was just supposed to be here for a year. I was clerking in federal court. Going to go back to D.C. I'm from the Mid-Atlantic. And we really fell in love with the town. We developed very quickly a bunch of good friendships. My wife was working in part on a farm, which for anybody who knows my wife, she doesn't strike you immediately as a farmer, whatever that may mean.
Sure.
So we really came to enjoy the town. I didn't really want to continue being a lawyer. I was working for a judge who wound up going to prison.
Okay.
He was buying cocaine from an undercover FBI agent.
Okay.
And so I said, if this is as good as the law gets, I think I'm going to figure out something else to do. And so made the first of two choices to stay in Atlanta. So I got a job at McKinsey & Company and went to work there. And then about a year ago, I had a chance to pull up and go somewhere else. Thought about going to London. But Atlanta was pretty hands down a great spot to be and to stay and to raise our kids. And so, yeah, we've made it home.
That is a really sincere defense of Atlanta. I mean, we're like locking eyes, and you are ride or die for Atlanta. I can tell.
It's been really a long time since somebody, I don't want to make a Civil War joke, but defended Atlanta with that much sincerity.
It's not even a very good Civil War
No,
joke.
It's not. That's why I didn't make it. I couldn't come up with the name.
The destruction of the legal career is interesting, and there's a McKinsey period of time, and then tell us what you're doing today.
So today I work at Spencer Stuart in our leadership advisory services practice. And so my work is all about people. I spend time thinking about people and culture and organizations.
Okay, take that one step more granular for us. So is this a coded way of saying you're doing leadership coaching and behavioral modification? I mean...
So I work with individuals, teams, and organizations. And I help them understand what are their unspoken assumptions, unspoken rules about how they act, whether it be one-on-one or in the context of a team or in an organization. And so if you think about an organization like since we're in Atlanta, Chick-fil-A.
Sure.
Really long, proud culture, A lot of it rooted in the founder and the practices and the legends that grew from their early days. Most organizations don't know how to even talk about that. You kind of know it when you see it. That's the culture. Well, my work is actually helping to be hard-nosed about the soft stuff. So we bring data to that. We actually measure culture. We survey it. We talk to people. So in fact, we are the cover story of this month's Harvard Business Review. Some colleagues at Spencer Stuart wrote an article about culture and how we can help to understand and modify culture, because that's actually one of the key components for organizations, whether, whoever they are, thinking critically about their culture and thinking, all right, what are the sacred cows that we have to slaughter and what are the ones that we have to keep?
Okay, I have a lot of questions about this. So let's stick with culture, and let's first consider it at a micro level at a company and organization, and then we'll go to a more macro level to the entire South. You're talking about influencing, perhaps. I hear you saying there's a responsibility to explicate, to codify, right, to understand or report what culture is. But you're also suggesting something that would change it or aid it in its evolution. Is that fair?
Totally right.
Put words in your mouth. So would that suggest that you or your colleagues perceive culture as a mechanical construct? It can be invented?
Good
or
question.
Is it organic and it can be maybe like cultivated?
It's more the latter, right? I mean, culture grows out of the early days of an organization in most instances. It's when things go right, people in the organization say, well, it went right because that's the way we do it. And so that becomes the way we do it. So, I don't want to speak for Chick-fil-A, but you can imagine that some of the way they treat people ended up being successful. And so folks said, well, we are successful because we do it that way, and we do it that way because it's successful, and it becomes reinforcing. So the culture grows. And, if you think about it like a tree, right? A tree is growing all the time. It's always growing taller, but at its core, it's still got that same, sapling there. Well, culture's a lot like that. It's organic. You're adding layers over time, and events, right? Like hard times, bankruptcies, mergers and acquisition, always they can jolt the culture. They can have an influence on it. And what we're doing is helping people be thoughtful about how they want to shape it. Because if you have a culture that is all about collaboration and all about getting everybody to agree, and that may be sort of that is how a lot of organizations operate. It's really hard for organizations like that to adapt quickly in times of stress. And so you have to help them understand, hey, here's the benefit of the culture you've got, and then here are the drawbacks. And being thoughtful about which of those things do we want to hang on to, and which of those things do we want to actively try to shape and reshape.
So I wonder, is it the corporations themselves that would engage you, or is there some sort of third-party compelling event that would bring you in, or like a private equity firm or somebody saying, hey, there's a performance issue here, we are requiring that you...
You get both. The smartest CEOs and the ones who really understand the power of culture reach out proactively. They recognize, first of all, there's something there. There's a there. And second of all, that's not my expertise. I'm here because I'm a great finance guy or I'm a great visionary or whatever. But I want somebody to help me understand this and do this with me. And then other times, there's a crisis will bring on a need for this. So I worked at an oil company, and shortly after they had a huge disaster, and they knew they needed to change the culture out there on the rigs. So you have, I would think about Volkswagen after their big fiasco. Those things are rooted in culture, or Wells Fargo after they, gave everybody credit cards. That's a cultural norm. It shows up because of the way culture has helped you shape your incentive plan. So a lot of organizations in like the Wells case would say, well, we should just change our incentive plan. But there are a set of behaviors that you've promoted implicitly and explicitly throughout the organization that get you there. And so, it's both. Folks are proactive about it and they're reactive about it.
Do you, without naming any names necessarily, do you have clients, do you work with companies in the South? Are there Atlanta-based or others in the region?
Mm-hmm.
And do you find, what's the connection between their culture and then this larger, very interesting, sensationalized, distinct subculture of American life we call the South?
Yeah.
What is the relationship between the two, in your mind?
I don't want to speak too specifically. What I'll say is, if we think broadly about what the culture of the South would be, there's a strong sense of interdependence, a strong sense of we are.
Oh, this is such a minefield. This is fun. You're going to tell us what Southern culture is.
I'm going to tell you some things that are there.
This is what we're going to take out of context later. This
Good. I can't wait.
Oh,
Yay.
This is great. Let me get Twitter fired up.
So there's a sense of interdependence, a sense of shared destiny when it's done right. There's also strands of strong independence, strong sort of, I do what's right for me or my clan. And so in the places where there's that strong sense of shared goodness, the best of that is, at least for me, sitting around like a barbecue with friends and family and neighbors and talking about the day's events, or those to me feel like really great sort of cultural moments. That's, by the way, why I think, and this is totally off topic, why I think barbecue is the quintessentially Southern food. Because it is ultimately a lazy man's food. I mean,
I reject that on its premise. We'll come back to it, but that's
and it's something where you take hours and hours to transform a cheap piece of meat into something really glorious.
That's what I mean.
Beautiful.
Have you ever stayed up all night like smoking a?
I do it almost every weekend.
Okay, all right. I'm calming down.
Yeah.
Okay. So the lazy part is the
friendly
eating.
fire.
Okay.
The lazy part is the sort of. I have an excuse now to go outside with a beer and stand around for 20 minutes. Nobody's complaining. My entire family is happy that I'm actually contributing to the family for once.
Agree.
And it doesn't involve me, planting anything. I just am out there. So anyway, I feel like that's, we're off topic, but.
Well, the whole pod's off topic, but I'm interested in, and we'll come back to this after the break, but this idea of Southernness as a cultural characteristic inside of this increasingly homogenized corporate structure where information is virtualized and we all use the same technology and the relationship between. Let's give a quick shout out to a sponsor. We'll come back and tackle that.
The best thing about Dig South is the energy.
I think the best thing about Dig South is that it's bringing a lot of people together, and it seems like everyone is having fun. Like this, at the end of the day, this should be fun, and so I like anything that celebrates that.
So I'd say like the best thing about it is being in a place that's on the up.
So I love the climb. That's what I love about this conference. Whether it's a positive or a negative or that chip on the shoulder, that comes along with being a place where people like me don't want to come and speak, and all those dynamics, I love that.
You know what I mean by that? Like a place that's like feeling like you've come across something that's like a secret.
I think the perception is changing about the South and how it's embracing the digital world. So often we hear about California, New York, DC, but really, if you look at it, the South is where a lot of wonderful ideas are growing, and I think it's about time that the digital world and the tech world recognizes it.
I think that it's really great to come here as a technology journalist and to see a lot of these, these startups and to sort of, see the passion. And it's not just New York and it's not just San Francisco anymore in Silicon Valley. It's happening everywhere.
It's an opportunity for entrepreneurs to really network, and I think it's something that regions outside of Silicon Valley don't always have the opportunity to have. So I think that that's what's exciting.
Stan has put together this playground of tech. And then he's thrown the fire of all of the acts that he brings into town for the evening events. It's just amazing.
I'm leaving Dig South with kind of an excitement, in the sense of it's really nice to be able to express and to see how it can resonate. But then you pick up little things that you can take back and that you can apply to your own work. And so I'm going back like refreshed and recharged, and I thank Dig South for that.
Not only do I think I'll be back, I think I'll be back in 5 to 7 years, and I think this thing will be 40 to 80 times bigger if the momentum that I think I'm tasting here continues. Awesome. Cool.
Back with David Metcalf, and want to come back to this idea of southernness, so being inside of a subculture and its relationship to the culture of a company or an organization. What do you discover? What do you see in that? Is there anything there, or am I just inventing this?
Well, so, one of the things that I think is really great about the South is its people. And one of the things that done right in Southern companies is that they talk about the people, the value of the people, that they're a real asset. And they don't just say, well, our people are our greatest asset, which kind of is in vogue to say everywhere. But they invest in it. And so they talk about not just work-life balance, but bringing your whole self to your work. And so you see folks who go take lower paying jobs at organizations that actually value them as humans and value the contribution that they make to their neighborhood or to their community. And that's, to me, that is a place I would love to see more organizations go, is saying, we employ you and we, you owe us something for that and you do work for that. But also we recognize that you are a contributing member to society. And so we help you be that.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I think of southernness in a corporate context, you referenced Chick-fil-A earlier. There's, of course, an overt religiosity, right, within their presentation. Or maybe not overt, it's strongly implied.
Okay.
It's strongly implied that the founding of the company and the principles it operates on serve like a higher power.
Okay.
To me, that's sort of typical when you think about a Southern influence. Do you run into that sort of thing ever? I mean, what's the relationship of this governing religious construct to performance? Or do you have to weed that out, or what do you think about it?
I think that it's a mistake to virtualize everything. I actually think there is something really important.
Metcalf with an argument against modernity.
No, I
shaking his
genuinely
fist
believe
at the future.
Yeah, I genuinely believe that interpersonal human connection is critical to who we are, and that when we depersonalize work, we take meaning out of it. I mean, by the way, this is a podcast about the South. The South is all about place. And I genuinely believe that we will one day, and I'm not saying it's in the next 2 years, we will see a return to the workplace in the same way that we're seeing a return to cities. So the move from suburbs into cities is about how do we actually connect our lives and one another. And I genuinely believe that although there are nice benefits to the gig economy, to fractured work, to work from home stuff, I genuinely believe that it's really hard to collaborate when you can't look somebody in the eye. It's really hard to know whether you can trust them to do what they're going to say they're going to do if you can't see them all the time.
Wait a minute. So you're making some sort of hazy proximity argument that if you just get human beings together, there's some concoction.
It's not hazy at all.
Well,
I'm going to make a
it?
direct claim that you need to be around the people you work with to establish trust.
How do you measure that? If I've hired you and I expect some report, do you score that? Like how do I get my arms around the
Great question. So let me be clear. If the work is commoditized and is itself a one-off, then yeah, I mean, you can ship that out to wherever you want. But if you need people to put their brains together to solve a problem of increasing complexity, to me, that it's really hard for humans to connect virtually. And I fundamentally believe in the case of putting humans' brains together, when you take two people who are smart, 1 and 1 equals 3. And so I genuinely think you need more than one person to tackle most problems. And so when we're tackling the most complex problems, we need smart people to be together over time, because that's how you learn the way people work, and you build, like I keep saying, trust, which is a fundamental sort of cement to working relationships and getting things done.
Well, I'll drop the pretense. I completely agree. In my professional life, I'm growing increasingly maniacal about demanding in-person meetings to kick off projects.
Bravo.
And people look at me kind of funny and wonder about the expense, and I just say it's non-negotiable. But what happens is you cultivate affinity, trust, shared values, and then you save so much time. And I have peers and colleagues who run into issues, and I'm like, they don't trust you.
Right.
Your client just flat out doesn't trust you. Mm-hmm. And there's no number of emails that's going to fix that. And once you get behind the curve, yeah, you do need to visit them, and it's going to be a weirder visit.
Totally.
It's going to be like 50% weirder.
And you're going to be, when you get to the moment when you're parsing emails or you're looking for what did I send that email?
Yeah.
Did I tell them this? Oh yeah, I can go find it. When you get to litigate with your peers and partners, like it's all for naught. You've already lost.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I am pleased by what I think we're agreeing on is the southernness of that concept. This idea of community and commonality that's shared, just to bring it full circle, like in a barbecue, pig picking.
That's right.
So the point of that is to be together for an extended period of time in a way that's probably born from values created in an agricultural society and a heavily religious society, and just where people worked side by side and worshiped side by side, and that's what defined who they were, was they did it together.
I've heard the interesting thesis that the end of Southern culture came with the invention of the air conditioner. So before the air conditioner, Southerners sat outside on their porches all night being facetious, but waited out the day. And because you were out on your porch, you saw your neighbors and you knew what they were up to and you knew who was in the neighborhood. But as we introduce air conditioning, which lets people escape that oppressive southern heat, and things like garages where you can go in and out of your house without ever seeing a person, then you don't have that accidental sort of running in. And so,
well, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't necessarily subscribe, and I'm not suggesting this is your point, but these community benefits of hardship, if we take this to its logical conclusion, wouldn't it be better if we'd never invented anything and you and I just had to hunt all day, right? We'd be great friends, and that.
Well, we'd live to be about 26.
Sure.
And we'd grind our teeth.
But I mean,
on
at some
stones.
point, I'm leery to blame this innovation or that for a cessation or separation of. It's a choice. I think it's always been a choice, and I think there's a way to live in a pre-technological society where you still had to choose. I think.
Yeah, no, I don't know that I would. I'm not going to.
Did I win?
Stand and fight on that.
I won that.
Yes, the
Apology
point is yours.
accepted.
Yeah.
Thank you, David. Apology accepted. Well, let's get rapid fire here for a minute before we let you go. So you've been in Atlanta now for a number of years and chosen to stay, and we've talked a little bit about barbecue. What are some southern dishes? Because I'm sure you grew up on like soft shell crab and mid-Atlantic stuff. What are some southern dishes you've come to love?
I love brisket.
That's a good answer.
Love ribs. I'm real into protein, so I don't eat salad. Yeah.
And you're like a home barbecue.
Oh yeah.
And how do you have like a smoker?
I use Big Green Egg. I use an Atlanta product.
Okay.
Big Green Egg.
All right. So this is a real deal.
Oh yeah.
Anything else from Southern culture that's infiltrated your personal life? Any other quirks or habits you see that you didn't grow up with, but you inherited from being down here too long?
Not so. Maybe I'm too close to it. The fish doesn't know what water is, so
Yeah.
I might be missing it.
Yeah. Okay. What would you say to individuals who've heard this conversation and this is their first introduction to the work that you do? And maybe these are entrepreneurs, maybe these are founders who aren't operating at a level of revenue or investment to engage somebody like you, but they're curious about this culture thing.
Totally.
And they thought it was just something that happened. What can they take from this? What should they be thinking about? Where do you go to learn more?
I think, you always call me to learn more, but
We'll post your cell phone.
perfect. I would love that.
Yeah.
Yes, there's so many people that would
Yeah.
benefit from that.
Just call Dave.
I've worked with some small companies, and their problems are no different. If anything, their people problems are more important because you have to rub shoulders in closer proximity with less resources. And I've worked with some great CEOs, founders and CEOs of smaller, early stage companies, and for a lot of them, they are smart to use the purpose of what they're trying to do to motivate people to go above and beyond. And the smart ones know that anybody can make a widget, and some of being successful in making a widget is luck and timing, but some of it is getting a bunch of people who will work a lot harder than the rest of the folks who won't take no for an answer. And so when you've got a small number of people, creating an environment where they want to succeed and they want to give more is actually real magic. And so I've watched a couple of CEOs I really admire who I think are doing that and paying real attention to the people side of things and not just the, when's our next release date? although that's critical. I mean, that's table stakes in some ways.
Well said. David Metcalf, Spencer Stuart, ride or die for Atlanta. You'll find him here. He believes in it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Southpod, Rise of a Region, where innovators dish on success, failure, and a rapidly evolving South.